So let's turn the table to flood insurance. Again, very important part of Florida living, and maybe just kind of give us a feel for the flood insurance market and what's happening.
Yeah, so flood has kind of blossomed the past, I would say, 5 years now. Before those 5 years, we had really just FEMA to work with.
Mm-hmm.
Then you started seeing a lot more private market insurers coming into the field.
Mm-hmm.
And that's opened up the doors for people that, let's say, had a FEMA policy and it was 10 grand for their house.
Right.
Well, they either paid that or they couldn't buy the house, or if they owned it outright, they just didn't have insurance for flood.
Right.
So once the private market insurers came in about 5 years ago, that really opened the door for just more competition.
Mm-hmm.
It was easier to do business.
Right.
Now those private markets are kind of taking a step back to some degree. You're just seeing like barrier islands specifically starting to close down,
Mm-hmm.
zip codes close down where they're in high risk zones.
Right.
I don't know what's going to happen next year with those markets. I can tell you that the FEMA program, the National Flood Insurance Program, they switched to a new rating system back in 2020 in October.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been 2 years now.
Mm-hmm.
So we've kind of had a feel for that for 2 years.
Right.
And when they did that, elevation certificates kind of went by the wayside. You can still use them for elevated homes and things
Mm-hmm.
of like that nature, but the typical slab on grade house
Right.
that you used to be able to use an elevation certificate to kind of get the rate lower,
Right.
they don't use that anymore. It's really just a base rate. They have a bunch of analytics that's being run in the background when you're quoting, and whatever the rate is for that house, it's spitting it out, and that's the premium.
Interesting.
Yeah. So you've probably seen it come up with some clients that, let's say you're selling the house and the new buyer says, I can't get a flood price
and they want
nearly what you're paying.
Yeah.
Well, if they had an NFIP policy, they can transfer that to the new owner.
Yeah.
So that's exceptional because it really gives the new buyer confidence that that rate will be theirs.
Right.
And it's different from the home insurance because you can't transfer a home policy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
at least they have that going for them. It's like gold if you have an NFIP policy that's
Mm-hmm.
pre-2020 October. You are in that old rating system, and those rates are just simply better. The factors were different.
Mm-hmm.
Now, today, it's different.
And obviously a huge advantage, right, to be able to kind of just assume that. And how long will that continue? I mean, is there going to...
There's no saying that they could pull that someday. Certainly, maybe they do. As of right now, I have not heard anything about that.
And do those increase, though, a normal, percentages?
Yeah, they'll still go up. I mean, it's not like you're getting that rate and it's staying that rate. Right. It's just that rate will go up accordingly on the next term, whatever the increase is.
Gotcha. Interesting. So what else on flood insurance? I mean, it's good, right, that in the last few years we've gotten some private insurers in, which obviously make the market more dynamic.
Yeah. So if I'll get a barrier island house, let's say, and it's a $10 million property, I'm going to definitely market that out to just about everybody.
Mm-hmm.
We'll go first to the NFIP,
mm-hmm.
but on a house like that, you're only going to get the $250,000 maximum limit on the building. So from there, you would then pivot and say, what's the excess limits going to cost through NFIP? Or what can I get through these private market companies?
Right.
So we're definitely able to do that still.
Right.
I would say the capacity for them, it's just that time of year where you just had 2 big storms. Right. They're waiting for all this data to come in, and maybe they reopen first quarter, or maybe some of them don't, and they just kind of sit on their existing book because they came in heavy-handed for that first 5 years. They have a lot of business now, and a lot of their rates were just half of what NFIP was charging. That's why they were doing so well.
Business. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So they don't want to overextend themselves. We as agents don't want them to overextend themselves either, because if you guys go out or you pull out, that's going to put a lot of pressure on the insurance industry, the agents, the consumer. It has a trickle down effect. So I would much rather have them kind of just be proactive, making sure that they can stay with the people that they have. And then, if that's one company stance, like I said, we've got about 5 or 6 different private market insurers that we can quote it still.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. And again, as kind of get technical, the zones and the different flood zones and those types of things, and they're kind of dynamic, right? They can change.
Yeah. FEMA changes the zones all the time. They're constantly looking at the maps, changing the maps. It's, no secret. Some people will call me and say, hey, I got a letter from my bank that says I'm no longer in an A zone. I'm in an X zone. So they can drop the flood policy, or, on the contrary, they say I was in an X zone. Now I'm in an A zone.
Right.
And now they're having to foot the bill of, potentially $1,200, $1,500. Just depends.
Yeah.
Again, a lot of factors with flood insurance. You can't change the rate for the house once it's built. The way they're going to rate it is the way it's rated.
That's interesting. Even if the zone changes.
Well, if the zone changes, they'll look at that. But I'm saying in terms of like home insurance, you can do things that can lower your premium. That wind mitigation report, getting an alarm system, things like that. But once your house is built, Newer construction obviously is being built elevated. The higher the elevation, the better your flood insurance rate is going to be. But a lot of those older homes that haven't had any sort of updates and they're below grade or negatively elevated, they're going to pay a higher premium just because the risk is higher. You've seen the houses down in Fort Myers Beach, specifically Sanibel, they took on a lot of water. And I think that that's bringing a lot of insight now to consumers that said, oh, I can self-insure, or the water's never going to come up. I've lived here for 30 years. It's never come past this point. It just takes one storm. We had a very quiet season. So I think a lot of things are going to start to trickle out. And I haven't quoted flood insurance as much as I have this year in the prior 6 months. Like these past 2 months was crazy post Ian.
Right. Everybody thinking about it a little bit more proactively.
Definitely. So, and buying on the spot, like not even, balking at the price. Like I want that peace of mind. I think it freaked out a lot of people and rightfully so. I mean, you're talking about, multi-$100,000 asset that could possibly be washed away.
Right.
It's a big deal.
Exactly. As our consumers, as our homeowners, anything else they need to be thinking about insurance wise?
I don't think there's anything really to think about. I would just, really just advise people to look at their renewal when it comes in for a couple of reasons. One, if you're going to get a notice of non-renewal, you're going to get that about 4 months in advance.
Okay.
So I would always tell people to start looking at it at that time.
Right.
Don't wait until 30 days out.
Right.
As you can see, market changes almost daily now in our business. It's never been like that. Things change. If I give you a quote today, I can't guarantee it past really like 30 days. And that's outside of storm season. If we're in storm season, things can change on a dime.
Right.
I'm telling people in storm season, you get this quote and you want it, let me know like ASAP. Because if they shut down, look at the companies that shut down and haven't reopened. So, I mean, the best advice I can give somebody is to look at your premium when it comes in, do your due diligence, shop it around, find out if you're getting an adequate price for the home, and don't be afraid to do that. It costs you nothing,
Exactly.
And it's a free service. Everybody out there is still going to be looking to quote your business, and there's nothing special out there in terms of the market. You can just be in charge of getting the best price for your house.
And again, I think it's from our perspective in our business as buying and selling real estate, I think it's now become a factor, a top factor where we didn't even think about it until after we had the contract, and we were 2 weeks from closing. Right. It was a month later. 2 weeks from closing, like, what about insurance? I think now the world has changed, and because we just have to be more proactive, right? So we're actually looking at those insurance issues immediately, and sometimes even before anybody else sign a contract, they want to get an insurance quote now. So it's just the world is different.
I know your
and
team.
It's not bad. It's just different.
Right. Yeah. Your team is really good. I mean, they reach out to me whenever they have a risk or someone that's curious about the insurance costs, and I definitely welcome those calls. They can reach out to me anytime. Usually I get those back very quickly for you guys, and I think your team just does a good job at making sure that their client's going to be protected well, and they're not going to have a surprise after their contingency period's over. They're stuck. So
exactly. Just taking care of our clients.
That's what I try to do. I had to hound you down for like close to a year.
I'm like, who's this guy who keeps calling me?
That was a fun time because you didn't know me, and that was just a good trip down. In my earlier years, just trying to make it happen with you. I really thought that and still think that you are the number one realtor in town.
Thank you.
I hope I'm allowed to say that. But
well, sure, it's our show.
But I definitely believe it. I mean, you've got some pretty awesome price points sales wise. So to work with you and be a part of your select group of people that you trust, I definitely appreciate that.
No, I appreciate it. Awesome, Nick. It was great having you on the show. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Joel.
Absolutely. This is Joel with Talking Trends. We'll see you next time.